the final round of Group C games always tends to carry a different kind of tension than the opening match days, and Brazil's clash with Scotland in Miami was no exception. With the top spot in the group still very much up for grabs and Scotland desperately needing a result to avoid an uneasy wait for the knockout draw, this had all the makings of a tightly contested night. Instead, Brazil delivered one of their most clinical performances of the tournament so far, dismantling Scotland 3-0 to finish top of the group and march straight into the round of 32. Heading into this match, Brazil had a small but meaningful absence to manage. Rafinha, who had picked up a hamstring injury during the win over Haiti the previous week, was ruled out for this one, with young winger Ryan handed the responsibility of stepping into the starting lineup in his place. It was exactly the kind of moment that tests squad depth at a World Cup, and Carlo Ancelotti didn't hesitate to trust the youngster alongside the more experienced names around him. Alisson in goal, a back four of Danilo, Marquinhos, Gabriel, and Douglas Santos, with Bruno Guimaraes, Casemiro, and Lucas Paqueta controlling midfield, and Matheus Cunha partnering Vinícius Júnior up top. Scotland, under Steve Clarke, came into this match in a tricky position themselves. A win, or even potentially a draw depending on other results, would have given them real control over their own destiny heading into the knockout stage. Instead, after already losing 0-1 to Morocco in their previous outing following an opening win over Haiti, Scotland needed something special against the strongest side left in the group, and they simply didn't have the firepower to match Brazil's attacking quality once the match got going. Clarke set his side up with Angus Gunn in goal, Patterson, McKenna, Hendry, and Robertson across the back, Gannon-Doak, Ferguson, McLean, and McGinn in midfield, McTominay just behind a lone striker in Shanklin, a setup built more around discipline and compactness than chasing the game from the opening whistle, which made the manner of Brazil's early breakthrough all the more damaging to the overall game plan. It took Brazil only 7 minutes to make their intentions clear, and the goal came from exactly the kind of pressure that had been quietly building throughout this tournament. Ryan pressed high up the pitch and forced Scott McKenna into a rushed, uncomfortable decision deep in his own half, and Vinícius Júnior pounced on the resulting turnover to slot home the opener. It was a goal built almost entirely on Brazil's relentless energy out of possession, the kind of high pressing that turns a defender's split-second hesitation into a clean sheet's worst nightmare, and it also validated Ancelotti's decision to trust Ryan with the responsibility of filling Rafinha's void rather than simply shuffling the existing attackers into unfamiliar positions. Vinícius wasn't done causing problems either. Not long after his opener, he found the net again following another shaky moment from Scotland's backline, with Grant Hendry hesitating on the ball just long enough for Brazil to pounce. The celebrations were cut short, though, as the video assistant referee stepped in and ruled the goal out for a foul earlier in the build-up. For a few minutes, it looked like Scotland might escape with the score still sitting at a manageable 1-0, giving them something to build on heading into the second half. That hope didn't survive much longer. Right at the end of first-half stoppage time, Brazil worked another clean move down the right, and Bruno Guimaraes delivered a precise cross into the box that Vinícius Júnior met with a powerful header, rising above his marker to make it 2-0 heading into the break. It was his second goal of the night and his third of the tournament, a stat that put him among an exclusive group of Brazilian players to find the net in all three of the team's group stage matches at this World Cup. For a player already being talked about as one of the most dangerous forwards in the world heading into this tournament, this kind of consistency across 3 different group games against 3 different defensive setups says everything about the level he's currently playing at. Scotland came out for the second half needing a response, and to their credit, they didn't simply fold. They pushed numbers forward, looked for quick combinations through midfield, and tried to find a way back into a match that was rapidly slipping away from them. But Brazil's third goal arrived right when Scotland's pressure seemed to be building some genuine momentum. In the 60th minute, more slick interplay involving Bruno Guimaraes opened up the angle for Matheus Cunha, who finished confidently to make it 3-0 and effectively end any realistic hope of a Scottish comeback. By that point, the underlying numbers told the same story the scoreboard did. Brazil finished the match with an expected goals tally above 4, compared to barely over 1 for Scotland, a gap that reflected just how comprehensively the Brazilians had controlled the match from start to finish. To Scotland's credit, the final half-hour saw them go down fighting rather than accept the scoreline quietly. Alisson Becker, who had spent most of the night with relatively little to do, suddenly found himself called into genuine action. At one point, he spilled an in-swinging corner from Lewis Ferguson, and Scotland pounced on the loose ball through Ralston, who drove down the left and squared it for Scott McTominay to strike on the swivel. Alisson recovered just in time, making himself big to produce a brilliant, heartbreaking save that kept Scotland off the scoresheet. Moments later, Ferguson stepped up to another dangerous free kick, only to see a Brazilian header flick the ball just over the crossbar, earning Scotland a corner but nothing more concrete to show for their late surge. By full time, Brazil had done exactly what they needed to do, securing top spot in Group C and setting up a far more favorable path into the knockout stage as a result. Their reward is a round of 32 fixture at NRG Stadium in Houston on June 29, where they'll face whichever side finishes as runner-up in Group F, a group that, at the time of writing, could still produce the Netherlands, Japan, or Sweden as Brazil's next opponent. Considering Brazil's odds heading into this tournament already had them ranked among the genuine contenders for the title, a comfortable group-topping campaign without their first-choice winger Rafinha for the final match only adds to the sense that this squad has more depth and more attacking solutions than almost anyone else left in the competition. For Scotland, the picture is considerably more nervous. The defeat leaves them on 3 points from 3 matches, and while that result alone wouldn't ordinarily be enough to advance in most major tournaments, the expanded format at this World Cup means Scotland still has a path through as one of the best third-place teams across all the groups, depending on how results elsewhere fall. It's the kind of agonizing, out-of-your-hands weight that no team wants to be stuck with, watching other scoreboards around the tournament rather than controlling their own fate directly. Steve Clarke's side showed genuine spirit in patches, particularly in that frantic final half-hour, but 2 defeats from their last 2 group matches against quality opposition leaves them hoping other results break their way rather than knowing for certain that they're already through. What stands out most when you look back at this performance, though, is just how different Brazil looked compared to the side that needed a stoppage-time mentality shift to break down Haiti just days earlier. Vinícius Júnior in particular has looked like a player on an entirely different level throughout this group stage, scoring in every single match and repeatedly punishing defensive mistakes with the kind of ruthless finishing that title-winning teams need from their best attacker. Pair that with Matheus Cunha continuing to find the net as Brazil's new first-choice striker option, and Ancelotti suddenly has a front line that looks every bit capable of going all the way in this tournament. There's still a long road ahead before anyone in yellow and green starts thinking about lifting another World Cup, but topping a group that included Morocco, a side that reached the semi-finals back in 2022, is no small statement this early in the competition. Brazil now heads into the knockout rounds with confidence, depth, and arguably the most informed forward at the entire tournament. Scotland, meanwhile, heads home to wait, hoping their World Cup story isn't already finished. It's also worth pausing on what this campaign has shown about Brazil's overall identity under Ancelotti, since a manager who built his reputation almost entirely in European club football is now guiding a national team through a World Cup for the very first time. The patterns on display in this win, aggressive pressing in wide areas, quick combination play through midfield rather than over-reliance on individual dribbling, and genuine rotation depth that allowed a teenager like Ryan to step in seamlessly for an injured Rafinha, all point toward a structured, deliberate approach rather than simply trusting raw talent to carry the day. That's a meaningful shift in how this Brazilian side has sometimes